Hi, everyone. My
Hey.
name is Daniel. I am here with my favorite serverless mom, the only serverless mom, Nica. How are you doing today, Nica?
Did you know there was an attempt to create another serverless mom? I was like, no, putting a stop to it. There was like
Shut
serverless.
that stuff down.
There was serverless underscore mom, and I mean that's fine, but it was just who was it? It wasn't Dan's. It was somebody else's mom who was editing his book, and she's like, "Can I be the serverless mom now?" And I was like, "No, that's my deal. You can't have it." I want more.
You got to
serverless
get
moms.
all the domains.
Yeah, I want more serverless moms. I want nothing but serverless moms. Hey, everybody. So
I'll be the fun uncle. I'll be the fun serverless uncle.
yeah,
That gets the children gifts.
funky Uncle Serverless, the Funky Kong of serverless.
So, Nica, what are we doing today?
Like,
I'm so
hey,
excited.
Kids.
Oh my god,
We're
that's slightly creepy. So what are we doing today, Nica?
Well, the important thing is we're back. We took a little break. And we're back. I got COVID-19. That was fun. Get your vaccinations, everybody. They really work. They made the difference between life and death. So do it, please. But yeah,
vaccines are good.
Yeah, when I will make a tiny little PSA. If you're dealing with like contamination, OCD, or other like fears of disease, and you read these things, it's like, oh, this vaccine is only 80% effective in this context. That's how effective it is against ever testing positive for COVID, which it's incredibly effective. They all are against hospitalization. So please, 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 maybe you're watching this a year later and you don't care about this, but don't get too flipped out when you see like, oh, this one is 80-some%. Again, that's ever testing positive. That's very different than saying, hey, you'll ever actually, get sick, have to go to the hospital, which I didn't. But that means we took a week off. But now we're back, and we're talking about fun New Relic stuff. Daniel, how you been? What you been up to?
I've been just, living my best life, living my truth, just enjoying the great weather here in San Francisco. I've been just getting real deep and dirty and whatever the wording is around like the New Relic product, trying some really cool features that I can't wait to show off to everyone in a couple of weeks. And, just living my best life. It's great.
I love that. I would like to mention that I made myself a milkshake this time. Normally I get a smoothie from my housemates, and I made a very large, very, very large smoothie, and I thought this will last me the whole show, and now it's gone. But I'm fine. I'll be fine. I got a tiny fridge down here now, so that's good. I'm going to switch from smoothies to Coke Zeros. Be right back.
Okay, so while Nica gets her drink for the show. Oh, okay. I'm super excited to announce our guest, Augustine.
Yeah, Augustine is working on data ingest, and there it is. I like StreamYard. Let's do it forever. Let's always be StreamYard.
Yes, let's do it.
Augustine.
Hello, everyone.
Good. Who are you, Augustine, and what do you do at New Relic?
All right, that's a good question. First of all, thanks everyone for being a great audience here. I'm Augustine Mathew. I'm the Principal Product Manager with New Relic. And my job is to build products that you guys love and bring it to you in time and with quality, and hopefully help you solve some of your problems.
So what we're here for this week is talking about data ingest, and the thing that I really wanted to cover for this is that, we've had this kind of shift at New Relic where we're shifting to billing it in a way that much more reflects kind of what the user really cares about of New Relic. So one is by, how many people are actually accessing the full New Relic product, and the other is by data ingest. Can you talk a little bit about that, or about the logic behind that shift?
Yeah, sure. As you all most likely know by now, New Relic has the consumption model for pricing, which means that independent of what data you bring into New Relic, you pay a fixed cost, and the more you use, the more the less you use, the less cost it is, and the more you use, the more costly it is. So you can manage your budget. You exactly are in control of what your observability costs are. You're able to essentially observe all your environments, all your telemetry data, whether it's events, metrics, logs, or traces, whatever it may be. So the switch really was because a lot of customers, when we talk to customers, that is where things are moving, right? Customers want to pay by usage, and that's essentially the focus. And so, the good news is more and more customers are bringing more and more telemetry data into New Relic as a single central telemetry data platform. And so combined with that, the consumption-based pricing combined with that makes it very attractive and very practical.
I really, really like that. And I really like the concept. Obviously, I work in serverless, so that's the thing I care about the most is the concept that something that you're just not using is not going to be generating any billing. It is, of course, a powerful one because we do want to have that flexibility. And one of the things that happens when you make any technology that's very easy to roll out and install and sort of get running is you do increase the risk of if I'm just paying kind of a flat monthly fee by host or something, then it was so easy to install this on 7,000 hosts, but we're not, we weren't really using that. We weren't really sending any data. It's just really nice to be able to say, we're only going to pay for this what we're actually using. But what we're going to look at today, one of the questions that I certainly get working in the serverless world is, someone said, well, there's ingest-based pricing. Well, how much is this many lambdas going to cost me? And I don't think that's a silly question at all. In a world where you're paying just by host, however many installs you have, that's how much you pay. You can give out an exact answer to that, right? You say, well, this many hosts, this much cost. That's not a great deal for the user, right? Because it again, if you don't send any traffic to that thing, it never sends any data to New Relic or very little, you would still be paying. So it's not great for the user. But to that one question, it feels like, that's an easier question to answer, right? So in this case, when someone's saying, how much is it going to cost to send this much data, or how much data is going to get sent? Of course, part of my answer is always, it's going to vary a lot by the amount of traffic and obviously how much sort of data we're picking up. But I would like to be able to give someone a tool to say, hey, get some sense of how much data you are using or how much it looks like it's growing. And I think we have a tool to look at that today.
That's right. Today we're going to, our plan is to look at how you can gain deeper insights into the data that you're bringing into New Relic.
So could you give us 2 steps of browser zoom? Give us a zoom in and enhance.
Yeah, I think while we do the zooming, I want to just bring in the fact that New Relic's pricing model, I think, is really unique among all the observability players, and that we don't really charge by the amount of data we ingest, but we charge more about who is actually using the platform and actually getting value out of the telemetry data that you're actually putting into our platform. So this, I think, is more of an analytics tool about how much data you're kind of sending to New Relic, not much more about how much you're getting charged per month on the data that you ingest. Wouldn't you say so?
Wait. Don't we do some billing by data ingest, don't we? It's
no,
tier.
It's not as much. It's not
okay, because literally, my first part of my answer to any question like this is this is really not what I do, right? I try to see cool stuff with New Relic. I'm really not a pricing person, so I can be wrong. No doubt.
Wait, Augustine, could you kind of clear that up a little bit of what I just said? Because that's kind of my understanding of the billing structure. But obviously, I don't pay for New Relic internally. So, but that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. So, what I heard you talk about was the ingest-based pricing model. So essentially, there are a couple of components to it. One is, bring your data into the New Relic telemetry data platform, which is our backend where you store the data and query it from. There is an ingest cost. Independent of the type of data, there's an ingest cost per GB, right?
I was right.
Yeah, and then so it's very predictable, right? So certain ingest for standard 30 days, for example, and then you want to extend retention for that. You have a certain ways to extend that as well by paying in a small extra fee. The other component is also the number of users that are essentially using the application.
Yeah, and I will say, like, one of the reasons that this isn't top of mind for a lot of us, even those of us who talk to New Relic users, is that, and I do want to kind of get this out of the way sort of early on, while we do want to keep an eye on ingest, and this is what we're going to look at Tools for here, the situation has been, I really have not had any conversation with customers where, oh my God, ingest costs so much, we got to cut it down, right? It's a very, again, it's not my like area to like give you, you know, pennies per kilobyte or whatever it might be, but it's not a situation where it's so expensive that's the sort of the cost center that everybody's focusing on. It is just something where, you know, we don't want to name names, but when you're out there saying, oh, just send us any amount of data, whatever you want to do, send us, you know, uncompressed video, send everything into your observability platform, that probably doesn't make a ton of sense, right? So we just want to have some kind of view as to like what's going on. But yeah, in the same way that Corey Quinn over at Duckbill has said, you know, nobody ever actually has to control their Lambda costs. Lambda costs are never like the thing that's like breaking the bank. We haven't, I just in my, you know, many conversations with, you know, existing customers, I haven't had anybody say, hey, this is really the problem is I'm not, you know, I'm ingesting too much data, it's too expensive. It's quite reasonable with New Relic. Though, yeah, again, if you want specifics, we got great account people. They'll get you all that information. But yeah, Augustine, let's see how we drill in and take a look at how much data we're ingesting.
Yes. Looks like I lost my camera probably for some reason, but
oh no, you're just an orb now. You're just an orb. That's all right. Augustine, the wisdom orb. Show us.
Yeah. If I stop my cam and come back, I'm sure it'll pick up my standard cam, but I think we'll move with it because you've seen me.
I will say, if you hit the gear at the bottom, you should be able to like reset it and tell it to detect your correct camera. But otherwise, let's just go ahead and do the demo. Let's take a look.
Yes. Let's see. Give me one moment. Let me just give the quick change to it. All right, I'm back. All right,
hey.
Thank you. Sorry for that delay.
Fear no more.
Yes, fear no more. So, you know, let's set some context here to begin with. You know, when you start bringing data to New Relic, and you're considering New Relic to be the central repository for all your telemetry data, you know, as a new customer or a customer bringing in new data to New Relic, that could be a time when you're interested in knowing, hey, how much data am I bringing from this source, right? Or it could be when you probably are looking at observing your system and you're noticing that there is a spike in data or drop in data that you typically bring into New Relic. You may want to investigate that. And there could be many other reasons, right? You may want to look at, hey, which team is actually bringing the most data, or which team is bringing the most data using this source coming into New Relic. So those are different questions that users may have in mind once you start using New Relic. And, you know, it's like, you know, you have a car, you want to go from A to B, but if you don't have any controls, you don't know, you know, how safely you are getting there. You know, how fast you're going, how much fuel is left, and all of those good stuff, right? So, what the data ingest, you know, capabilities and data, you know, monitoring capabilities that we provide, we're going to take a look at it here. So, I hope you can see my screen.
Yep.
The menu bar here, you just go to manage your data, and that is where you go to essentially answer some of those questions, right? These capabilities. On the left-hand pane here, you see navigation pane gives you that insights into each of those questions. So, for example, I'll broadly cover this. Data ingestion essentially is around what data you're bringing in and where it's coming from. Data retention is essentially about, you know, how many days that data that you're bringing in is being retained. You have the ability to choose what you want, how much you want to retain. And then, of course, with any kind of system, you have certain limits that are in place for safeguarding the system and the operational health of the system. So you know what kind of limits that you're probably kind of approaching or breaking or whatever it is, right? So these are the controls that show you how you're bringing the data, what is the shape and size of the data, what is the health of the data that you're bringing in. Now, let us dive a little more deeper into the data ingestion, because today's topic is about data ingestion and how to inspect and gain insights about it.
So one reason that you didn't mention to keep an eye on data ingestion size, and I do think it's worth kind of noting, is occasionally when we have sort of the classic like just measurement metrics data, you'll get into a situation where we call like a longitudinal metric explosion, where you say, hey, here's how fast this particular page is loading, and somehow you end up storing like the whole URL of each page, which includes things like the customer zip code and other stuff in a URL. And one of the reasons to kind of keep an eye on those kinds of like just suddenly like logarithmically growing metric sizes or sort of levels of data being stored is that the other thing that you're doing is you are flooding your sort of data ingest, which maybe has some billing implications, but also is you are adding a lot to that haystack, right? And so that it's not like it's not like you say, oh well, if I store less data, I always have the answer faster, right? But it is just sort of worth looking at. If you're saying, hey, suddenly we're sending 10 times the number of log lines that we were previously, I think it's worth saying, hey, what are we doing here? And are we actually sending useful data? Or are we increasing the amount of toil that's going to be involved to find any actual clue? And that's not, again, it's not like you should go take some action like, just stop sending logs because you're sending more logs, right? But it is sort of suggestive, right? And then the last one of those that I really want to keep an eye on, if you look at a plot like this, is you also kind of want to take a look to see if this suddenly craters down to nothing, right? If your data ingest suddenly drops, that might be one of the most leading indicators that you have some serious problem, right? And so, for example, if you have you have reporting that suddenly broke, this might show you have a problem before a failure goes undetected, right? So these are edge cases, but these are other reasons to think about this kind of ingest as being really critical.
Absolutely. You want to look at the health of your system. And, the important thing is in observability, the most important thing is you have to purposefully gather data, right? There is no, you want to gather data or collect or store data that you essentially want to use to observe and, not necessarily anything and everything that's available. Especially when you're looking at some of the open source data solutions like Prometheus or things like that, they produce a lot of data, right? And you as a customer, as a user, you have to figure out, okay, what amongst that data is really critical for me? What is important for me? And there are ways to filter those data when it's coming in or at the source. So essentially those are other something for another day and different topic, but I'll come back to the focus point here. So as I was saying, this data ingestion chart here essentially shows you there is a spike in the data, there is a dip in the data here, and it's basically showing, for example, what type of data is essentially you're looking at. So,
sorry to interrupt, but Sean in Idaho asked if this feature is just in preview. So I believe it's accessible to everybody now. Yeah, correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
It's
right.
the menu bar up the top. If you want to show it just one more time, the menu bar up at the top there's manage your data.
That's right.
So Sean, try that in your new Relic interface. You should have this now.
Yes.
For kind of obvious reasons, this isn't like a top level thing, right? Because it's really not something you should need to check every day. But anyway, okay, let's go on. But yeah, Sean, if you have more questions, let me know. But you should be able to get to it.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome.
Good.
Oh,
and
sorry.
if you look at the table below, you can see that, for example, of type data of type metrics, I'm bringing in on a daily average of 292 gigabytes of data. Logging, I'm bringing in about 53 gigs of data every day. Tracing, so it's split and show you what type of data and which bucket that it belongs to and what percentage of that each one of that is, right?
Yeah.
So that gives you a quick preview. Now, one of the new things that we introduced as of June, end of June, is the ability to click on and further drill down into that specific band. So what I did there was,
okay.
Yeah. So what I did there was I clicked on logging band, and I essentially brought in and said, okay, I want to see more information about, okay, what are the apps that these logs are coming from? Which apps are producing these logs?
Yeah.
So you can see the fast adoption lab, the app name. It's essentially showing me that currency service is essentially bringing in X gigabytes of data versus others. And again, this is a demo system that I'm showing from. I don't have too much data in it, but you get the point, right? So you can see which apps are bringing in the most data, right?
It's so funny, having worked in observability systems for so long, you almost get a sense from distribution when things are kind of okay. It's just a funny thing. Like if you scroll to the top here, when you see that the number one service that's reporting logs is only about 1.5x of the number two thing, which is it looks just like you have some sort of bell curve of distributions. Usually, like logging's probably going just fine, right? The distribution that you will see when you're over reporting, you're logging like every line of code, right? One of them will be 100 times the whole rest of the field. Whereas this, you sort of look at it, and your first thought is like, well, this provided that the top one there, the currency service, is like a fairly important service or a well-used one, then this looks great.
Yeah, and you can switch between, once you're in this account, for example, each account that you want to inspect, you can just select that here, and then, for example, I want to take a look at metrics. For example, I saw the logs, I'm comfortable with it, I understand where it's coming from, which apps are generating. Now I want to see, okay, the source type metrics, where I'm getting metrics type data. What type of data is essentially that. And so here quickly, what it shows me is a breakdown of dimensional metrics, which is a standard metrics that everybody knows. And metric time slices is a type of metric data that New Relic produces from its own APM agents. So it shows you here that easily 275 gigs almost is from the dimensional metrics, which is the standard metrics. It could be an open source, data that you're bringing in, Prometheus data, whatever that is, or you may be sending that data through. You can look at the source as well. That's the beauty of it, right? You can see, okay, show me the source of all this data. How is it coming? Are we sending it through API, or are we collecting that using New Relic agents? What is the constitution of that data, right? And so you're seeing, so you're able to facet by various things, and you can facet by app name, you can facet by the agent type that is bringing in. So in essence, what it does is it gives you the ability to look at an account, look at immediately based on the different types of data in that account, it will dynamically generate this list. And then you choose one of those lists and essentially say, okay, show me all the different, facet by is just, almost saying that show me the next dimension group by this, right? So here, for example, I just switched to APM events, and I want to see all the events coming from APM agents or collected by APM agents, which is essentially coming from your applications, right? So then you can see facet by app name, and it shows me these services are the ones that are essentially, generating the most of those APM events. Now, the other thing I want to show here is, once if you look at the bottom of this screen, you can see this is the NERCL query. For example, NERCL is New Relic's query language. So to produce that chart above, this is the query that was run in the system. Now, I'm curious to know, okay, I want to essentially group by and inspect by different attributes. So what I can do is I can just quickly open this exact query in the query builder, and I can say, I want to now, facet by, different things in the system. For example, it could be agent, any kind of attribute that you have on that data, you can facet by. So for example, let me see if, so I just picked up a, attribute which I thought would be part of it, but it's not. But if it is, you will see the options faceted by that. So any attribute you can inspect by, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I really like that because it gives a sense for, maybe if you're in a situation of being like a contractor or like a studio or something where you do development for multiple clients, you want to say, hey, is it data related to one client? That's what's being reported so much. You can try to get a sense for that.
That's right. And I just switched to while you were talking, I switched to another query here which I had ran before. I know that I'm bringing in data as a metric type data, and I'm looking at, okay, I want to see where the app name is of like order. So I know my applications that I want to look at has order in its name, so I can just simply say filter by that particular app where the app name is like order, and then it basically pulls and focuses on just the apps that are essentially have order as a string in it, right? So this way, you can inspect by any attribute, you can filter by any attribute, you can facet by any attribute. So that's the beauty of Nurgle query, right?
Yeah, yesterday actually, I built a dashboard using all the data, using like, I don't know what you call it, like, do you call it like, what do you call it, Nica? The thing next to select, like, do you call it entity?
Query?
The even name or metric name, right? You select
a
specific attribute, or you can write a function called
attributes. Yeah. So I actually like got to like see all the different projects that I have hooked up to my New Relic instance and how much they were ingesting data. And I thought that was really interesting because I could see, okay, which ones are logging a lot of data, which ones aren't. And I feel like it's really useful, even if you're not like producing full-on production apps, to go in and see like how much data you're ingesting into New Relic, and which like apps may or may not be like hooked up correctly.
Well, I think like the primary audience for this kind of tool is going to be, enterprises dealing with really high volumes, wanting to say, hey, let's just keep an eye on this. Let's see if we're sending a terabyte of data every day or whatever. But the fact is that there's also the consideration of, and I think you've identified the big use case that might affect a lot more people, which is just kind of checking in to see that things are actually reporting. Is the project actually inactive and really shouldn't be reporting data, or we should look into that? Or is this something you're working on very actively and you're not seeing any data? And just getting that early warning system, I think this is a really powerful way to do that, because it's frankly, it's a little more powerful than just seeing, hey, that the status is green on an application, right? Because it is true that unless you've set up your anomaly detection quite well, something going from 100 requests a minute that it answers in 10 seconds to 2 requests a day that it answers very quickly, it'll suddenly go status like green, right? It'll go from being yellow to green, saying, oh, hey, this thing is actually way healthier now, right? But data ingest will weigh the amount of things that are actually getting reported and will say, hey, something is dropping way off here. So it'll give you some indicator. So I think that's an interesting pattern.
Yeah, and one of the things that these queries that you see and the drill down capabilities that you see, sometimes customers are looking at way to kind of look at which teams are contributing to this data, which teams are data are is coming into New Relic, and I want to do a chargeback kind of a function, right? So I want to see how much data is this team's applications bringing into ingest, right? So different things, right? You can start inspecting that information very easily. So one thing I want to point out is the drill down function just limits you to certain facets that we thought are the most popular, but don't stop there. You can copy that query and open in Query Builder and then go at it at the different attributes that you want to facet by. So this is intended to be a starting point where we want to familiarize you with the possibilities and then give you the power to essentially explore further in Query Builder. So one thing we are constantly looking for is if we feel that more and more customers want certain types of attributes that facet by options are more popular and in demand, we can then definitely keep adding those to the predefined list here. But again, that power is in your hands now. By looking at different ways that we are querying different metrics, you can learn what query you need to use, and you can use on your own in Query Builder to expand on that. So go get creative with it, and that's what I would like to say. And once you start exploring, you really discover the beauty of Nurgle and the beauty of ability to query in New Relic.
Love it.
Awesome.
I love it. This is a really, really neat way to get insight. Again, if you're doing your first New Relic project or doing a second and third project, take a look at this to just get a sense of what's reporting data and what's not, and that might be interesting to you, especially if you're worried you might have some stuff just kind of running without your monitoring. It's good to take a look at. Obviously, if you're a larger org, this is a great thing to look at, especially as you have a conversation with your account exec to say, hey, what are we doing and how, and getting really nice insight very, very well, especially if you're piloting the project. It's a good way to take a look early on. But Augustine, was there other stuff you want to share with us? This has been such a cool segment. It's really neat. Like this is for the New Relic diehards. Is a way to really get a sense of like data reporting and get real insight across your whole org.
Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly show you everywhere. The idea is to show you how we are getting to that in certain charts that we are displaying there. So if you look at the query, you can see how that chart is rendering based on this query, right? So here, NR consumption is a metric that we generate based on what we see the consumption of data from your accounts. So that's one metric of interest to you. If you look at the drill down functionality here, the function that we use here is called byte count estimate. That is the function that operates on the raw data that is stored in New Relic. So what that means is, you're inspecting the raw data that you have in New Relic. So based on your retention settings, for example, you may have a setting in New Relic that keep my metrics only for 30 days, right? Now, I want to just remind that this drill down operation is only available for the time period where you have that retention of your raw data. So for example, the effect of that is if I go and click here, my logs retention, if I'm not mistaken, I've set it to a less number. So if I click on logs let me see here, maybe I'll try to see the metrics. Metrics I do have, but let me switch to logs. You have a condition where it says no chart data available. What that's really telling you is if you read this text here, it will tell you why you're not seeing data. So this ingest breakdown is computed on data within your retention period for logging. So if your retention period was 60 days or 90 days, it would have plotted that graph here. But since I selected a time period which was before that retention period, it is saying I don't have the data that I can inspect using this function. So that's just something that I want to point out because you will definitely stumble into that, but you know the reasons for it. And another interesting thing. So if you ever get into it, you want to see the most recent time, you can just click on that and it will take you to the most recent data. Another thing to notice is when I click on most recent time, what it does is it basically takes the time that you've clicked, and if you're selected the most recent time, it takes 1 hour before that as the window. So it will show you the data for the last hour or last 24 hours, depending on the amount of data that you have in your account. The other is if I click on this any day within the retention period, I clicked on a time which is essentially 12:36 p.m. 6/11, which is June 11th. The window that is selected for querying here is a 24-hour window with this timestamp as the midpoint. So that's just another interesting detail that you will definitely experience. So the reason why we restrict this query to a 24-hour window or a 1-hour window, depending on the volume of data in your account, is because we want this to be performant. You are interested, you want to see this data quick, and you want to see that in an efficient way, right? So based on the amount of data in your account, we are trying to kind of narrow that window into a 1-hour window or a 24-hour window, right? Just to keep the query efficient and show essentially what you're looking at is you want to see a cross section of the data, right? At that timestamp that you clicked on. So effectively, if you just take a window of 1 hour, it meets that purpose. So that's all what I had to show today. But again, this is the new capability where you can drill down further into the bands that you see here in the data ingestion screen, and being able to dive deeper and being able to take that query to Query Builder and expand on it further.
I really, really like it, though. I think it's a really powerful tool. And I want to see some more people using it. I want to have, especially with our power users, I want to have this dashboard open when we're having conversations about their architecture and deployment strategy. Well, Augustine, thank you so much for joining us. Is there other stuff you want to plug? Do you have socials you want to look at? Are you talking at any conferences? You got a lot to say, so
a SoundCloud album, maybe like.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anything coming up in the near future, but definitely stay plugged. I'm Augustine Mathew. I'm on LinkedIn, and we'll see you some point very soon in another one of these episodes. So looking forward to that.
Nice.
Hope to bring you some exciting news. Yes.
Daniel, I know we're working on big stuff, but is there stuff we want to talk about for today that we have announced that we want to make sure people come check out?
Not this week, but I think everyone, if you have a New Relic account, go ahead and navigate to the data management tab.
Yeah.
Just click on your profile and just look at it and just see how your data ingest is doing. It's really easy.
We should make a jingle for it. It's top right corner, data management.
Yeah.
That's the SoundCloud album. We got that's track number 2.
Just mnemonics for where stuff is. Check out the Nerd Log every Thursday. We do it on Twitch. It is a fun thing that we do. We're going to be talking about really exciting stuff next week. Have cool features coming out in GA.
The Pixie, right? Was I supposed to leak that? Wait, is that?
You might have leaked it. No.
No.
I think we're okay.
We're okay.
Seeing as we were supposed to do a segment announcing these features before they were GA. I think we're safe. But yeah, we're going to talk about Pixie next week, about other great stuff next week. So yeah, come check us out. Thank you for joining on YouTube. If you have questions, please drop them in the comment down below on the YouTube. And thank you so much for coming out, everybody.
Thank you again.
Everyone.